All right, everyone, welcome back. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is, wherever in the world it is that you are. Welcome once more to another live stream of Alexandra Mayers Live, page by page reading and commentary of the modern English version of the Bible. So, we're finally getting into a book of the Bible that I'm minimally familiar with, which is Deuteronomy. We made it through the book of Numbers. I'm glad that I ended the book of Numbers with a video live stream instead of just a regular audio one. And I'm really glad to be starting Deuteronomy doing a video reading and commentary instead of just a audio one. Now, some days I'm sure I'll go back to the audio only format, but I'm just kind of, I don't know why, but I had the thought tonight that when I'm able to do these streams on video, I really should. So I am. Someone's asking if I'm sleepy. No, not at this moment. Not at this moment. I'm working on a little bit of a weird schedule right now because of the past couple of days. But tomorrow I'll be back where I'm normally based, and then I'll be able to resume my commentaries and whatnot as I normally do in the video format with the OBS and all that kind of stuff. But I was just thinking, since I didn't realize that the internet connection where I am right now is a little bit slow. So I wasn't able to do certain commentaries as I would have liked to have done. But I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do with my time until I'm back where I normally am tomorrow? And I thought, well, I've been slacking when it comes to my Bible readings. So we're doing it this morning. So those of you out there who are, reacquainting themselves with the Bible, whether you believe in it or not, it's an interesting story, whether you believe or not. Now, I do believe in Jesus Christ intensely. Um, I guess some people would say that I'm Christian biased. Can't help it. But I'm not against people practicing certain other religions. There's some religions I am against people practicing, without a doubt. But for the most part, I would say that I'm more on the tolerant end of the spectrum. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started because I'm excited about getting into the book of Deuteronomy. Okay, chapter 1, the command to leave Horeb. These are the words which Moses spoke to all of Israel on the other side of the Jordan in the wilderness, in the plain opposite Suph, between Paran and Tophel, in Laban and Hazeroth and Dizahab. It is an 11-day journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. 11 days on foot. Keep in mind, these are Bible times and whatnot. Well, that's good to hear, Timmy. A lot of people are afraid to admit that they're Christians nowadays. You believe in Jesus, not the Bible? Okay, you can do that. You can believe in the Bible and not believe in Jesus in a strange sort of sense. But the Bible, some of you may find my thoughts on the Bible interesting because I am for I'm for fairness when it comes to women. I cannot say that I'm for women being treated and viewed equally to men because men and women are both humans but very different, you know? But there are things in the Bible to where I don't think it's quite fair to the women. Not at all. Not at all. But that's what you'll hear a lot of me talk about. Also, I had a little bit of I had a bit of trouble with both Exodus and Leviticus due to a few things. So if you listen to my audio commentaries on that, you'll kind of understand why. I think that there's a lot of things that have been omitted from this version of the Bible that I'm reading, but I also think that there's things that are in here that are definitely politically motivated from the time that this was written. But that's just my opinion. In the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, Moses spoke to the children of Israel, according to all that the Lord had commanded him to give to them. It was after he had slain Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, who lived at Ashtaroth in Edrei. Across the Jordan, in the land of Moab, Moses began to declare this law, saying, "The Lord our God spoke to us in Horeb, saying, 'You have dwelt long enough at this mountain. Turn and take your journey, and go to the mountains of the Amorites, and to all their neighbors in the plain, in the mountains and in the lowland, in the Negev and by the sea coast, to the land of the Canaanites, and to Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates. See, I have set the land before you. Go in and possess the land which the Lord swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give to them and to their descendants after them.'" Leaders appointed. I spoke to you at that time, saying, "I am not able to bear you by myself. The Lord your God has multiplied you, and surely you are this day as numerous as the stars of heaven. May the Lord, the God of your fathers, make you 1,000 times more numerous, and bless you, just as he has promised you. How can I, myself, bear your load and your burden and your strife? Choose wise, discerning, and knowing men among your tribes, and I will appoint them as leaders over you." You answered me and said, "The thing which you have said is good for us to do." So I took the leaders of your tribes, wise and well-known men, and appointed them as leaders over you, leaders over thousands, and leaders over hundreds, and leaders over fifties, and leaders over tens, and officers among your tribes. I charged your judges at that time, saying, "Hear the issues between your countrymen, and judge righteously between every man and his fellow countryman, and the foreigner that is with him. You shall show partiality in judgment, but you shall hear the small as well as the great. You shall not be afraid in any man's presence, for the judgment is God's. The case that is too hard for you, you shall bring it to me, and I will hear it. At that time, I commanded you all things you should do." Israel sends spies. When we departed from Horeb, we went through all that great and terrible wilderness, which you saw by the way of the mountain of the Amorites, as the Lord our God commanded us. And we came to Kadesh Barnea. I said to you, "You have come to the mountains of the Amorites, which the Lord our God is giving to us. See, the Lord your God has set the land before you. Go up and possess it, just as the Lord, the God of your fathers, spoke to you. Do not fear or be discouraged." So all of you who came near to me and said, "Let us send men before us, so that they shall scout out the land, and bring back to us word concerning what way we should go up, and into what cities we shall come." The thing pleased me, and I took 12 men from you, one out of each tribe. They turned and went up into the hill, into the hill country and came to the valley of Eshcol and scouted it out. This is interesting. This part of the reason why I do like especially the start of the book of Deuteronomy has to do with truly they're talking again about military tactics and how to invade somewhere or infiltrate in somewhere. You don't necessarily have to be somebody who's about Christianity to enjoy this particular book of the Bible. Not at all. They took the fruit out of the land in their hands and brought it down to us, and brought us word again, and said, "It is a good land which the Lord our God is giving us." Israel rebels. Yet you were not willing to go up, but rebelled against the commandment of the Lord your God. You murmured in your tents and said, "Because the Lord hates us, he has brought us out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the land of the Amorites to destroy us. Where shall we go up? Our brothers have discouraged our hearts, saying, the people are greater and taller than we. The cities are great and walled up to heaven. And moreover, we have seen the sons of the Anakites there." So this is interesting because it's kind of reviewing everything that's happened, everything that we went through in the book of Numbers, but from a different perspective. And one thing that really does stand out when it comes to God bringing the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt is just how ungrateful they were at certain points in time to what God, when it came to what God did for them. But when you really think about what was going on in Egypt at that time, and when it came to how this, you got groups of people enslaved and whatnot, even though they were slaves, some of them, in some cases, were very spoiled and pampered even. So for them being free, it wasn't really to their benefit to be free. They would have been more comfortable if they'd remained slaves. And that's kind of a lesson that can be transposed to society today through changes in our political system and how technology is changing our world and whatnot. There's some people who don't want anything to change because they're happy not being as knowledgeable and as free as they could be. And there's people who actively fight against progress and technology and change because they essentially have the mindset of the Israelites who were ungrateful at this time in the Bible. It's funny how that is. But let's continue. Then I said to you, do not be terrified or afraid of them. The Lord your God, who goes before you, he shall fight for you, just as all he did for you in Egypt before your eyes and in the wilderness, where you saw how the Lord your God carried you, as a man carries his son, in all the way that you went, until you came to this place. Yet in this thing you did not believe the Lord your God, who went in the way before you, to find you a place to pitch your tents, and fire by night, and in a cloud by day, to show you by what way you should go. The Lord heard the sound of your words and was angry, and vowed, saying, not one of these men of this evil generation will see the good land which I swore to give them to give to your fathers. And again, this is why I like the Old Testament, because God's an emotional God. And God felt very underappreciated for everything that he had done for these people. And he was like, you know what? Like, how am I going to let you reap the benefits of everything that I put forth before you if you can't even have faith in who I am? I kind of feel like the Old Testament is more of the femininity in God being displayed. I think the Old Testament is more of the femininity. The New Testament, I think, is actually more of a masculine perspective of the world, but from a mature masculine perspective. Because when guys get old, they do kind of go New Testament when it comes to their attitudes, at least in my opinion. But the Old Testament, the God of the Old Testament, some of the anger, I think, is intensely feminine, feeling underappreciated. Oh, another reason for women to love God. The exception will be Caleb, the son of Jephunneh. He shall see it, and to him I will give the land which he has walked, and to his children, because he has wholly followed the Lord. Also, the Lord was angry with me on your account, saying, you also shall not go in, but Joshua, the son of Nun, who stands before you, he shall go in. Encourage him, for he will cause Israel to inherit it. Moreover, your little ones, who you said would be a prey, and your children, who in that day had no knowledge between good and evil, they shall go in, and to them I will give it, and they shall possess it. But as for you, turn around and take your journey into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. Then you answered and said to me, we have sinned against the Lord. We will go up and fight, just as the Lord our God commanded to us. So each of you girded on his weapons of war, and you thought it easy to go up into the hill country. Then the Lord said to me, tell them, do not go up nor fight, for I am not among you, lest you be defeated before your enemies. So I spoke to you, but you would not listen. Instead, you rebelled against the commandment of the Lord and went presumptuously up into the hill country. The Amorites who lived in the hill country came out against you and chased you as bees do, and destroyed you in Seir as far as Ormah. Then you returned and wept before the Lord, but the Lord would neither listen to your voice nor give ear to you. So you dwelt in Kadesh many days according to the days you dwelt there. Deuteronomy chapter 2, the wilderness years. Then we turned and set toward the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea, as the Lord spoke to me, and we circled Mount Seir for many days. Then the Lord spoke to me, saying, you have circled this mountain long enough. Now turn north. Command the people, saying, you are to pass through the territory of your brothers, the children of Esau, who dwelt in Seir, and they shall be afraid of you. So carefully watch yourselves. Do not provoke them, for I will not give you any of their land. No, not so much as a footprint, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau for a possession. You may buy food from them with money so that you may eat. You may also buy water from them with money so you may drink. Here's the injection of the importance of money. And it's right in the Bible. For the Lord your God has blessed you in the works of your hands. He knows your wanderings through this great wilderness. These 40 years, the Lord your God has been with you. You have lacked nothing. And the number 40 is very repetitive in the Bible. And if you look at early American history and certain things that were allotted to where it was supposed to, I guess, create forgiveness for certain things, the number 40 is often seen. It's funny, just the other night I was doing a panel with someone, and for some reason they were talking about creating an alpaca farm, and he mentioned 30 acres, and that just kind of clicked in my mind. What some, but not enough, African Americans were granted after slavery officially ended 40 acres and a mule. A lot of us never really got our 40 acres or the mule. For the Lord your God has blessed you in all the works of your hands. He knows your wanderings through this great wilderness. These 40 years, the Lord your God has been with you. You have lacked nothing. So we passed by our brothers, the children of Esau, who lived in Seir, through the way of the plain from Elath and from Ezion Geber, and we turned and passed by the way of the wilderness of Moab. The Lord said to me, do not harass the Moabites, nor contend with them in battle, for I will not give you any of their land for a possession, because I have given Ar to the children of Lot as a possession. The Emites lived there in times past, a people as great and as many as and many as tall as the Anakites. It's interesting how they keep mentioning how tall these Anakites were. I wonder what the height range of people were at this particular time. I bet there was a pretty wide spectrum of heights. I have a feeling about that. Because some of the people thought that the Anakites were like giants. But it makes you wonder how tiny were the people who were saying this. These people, as well as the Anakites, were regarded as giants. I didn't even know that sentence was coming. But the Moabites call them Emites. The Orites also formerly lived in Seir, but the children of Esau dispossessed and destroyed them and settled there in their place, just as Israel did to the land of its possession, which the Lord gave to them. Cross over the Zered Valley. So we went over the Zered Valley. Now the length of time it took for us to come to Kadesh Barnea until we crossed over the brook of Zered was 38 years, until all the generation of men of war perished from among the army, just as the Lord swore to them. For indeed the hand of the Lord was against them, to destroy them from among the midst until they were gone. So it came to pass, when the men of war were gone and dead from among the people, then the Lord spoke to me, saying, today you are to pass over through Ar, the border of Moab. When you come close to the Ammonites, do not harass them or provoke them, for I will not give you any of the land of the Ammonites as a possession, because I have given it to the children of Lot for a possession. That also is considered the land of giants. Giants formerly lived there, but the Ammonites call them Zamzumites. Zamzumites. That's kind of a fun word, isn't it? Zamzumites. They were a great people, numerous and tall as the Anakites. Anakites, Ammonites. I'm going to screenshot this. I want to look more into these groups a little bit later. That's what's kind of fun for me about doing this page by page reading of the Bible, is that it's fun to present the material, but I enjoy just on my own time looking into things that I didn't fully know about. Okay. But yeah, this group of people, the Ammonites and the Anakites, I wonder how tall they were. And I do wonder what they would have looked like. Just as a whole. Then they dispossessed them and lived in their place, just as he had done for the children of Esau, who lived in Seir when he destroyed the Horites from before them, and they disposed of them, or they dispossessed them and lived in their place even to this day. And the Avites, who lived in villages as far as Gaza, or Gaza. The Caphtorites, who came out of Caphtor, destroyed them and lived in their place. King Sihon defeated. Arise, set out, and cross the river Arnon. See, I have given Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his land into your land. Begin to possess it and contend with him in battle. This day I will begin to put the dread of you and the fear of you on the nations that are under the whole heaven, who shall hear the report of you, and shall tremble, and shall be in anguish because of you. I sent messengers out of the wilderness of Kedemoth to Sihon, king of Heshbon, with words of peace, saying, let me pass through your land. I will only go on the main road. I will not turn aside to the right or the left. You shall sell me food for money that I may eat, and give me water for money so that I may drink. Only allow me to pass through on foot, just as the children of Esau, who dwell in Seir, and the Moabites, who dwell in Ar, did for me, until I pass over the Jordan into the land which the Lord our God is giving us. But Sihon, king of Heshbon, would not let us pass by him, for the Lord your God hardened his spirit and made his heart obstinate, so that he might deliver him into your hand, as he is to this day. The Lord said to me, see, I have begun to give Sihon and his land to you. Begin to possess it, so that you may inherit his land. Then Sihon came out against us, he and all his people, to fight at Jahaz. Then the Lord our God delivered him over to us, and we struck him down with his sons and all his people. We took all his cities at that time and utterly destroyed the men, the women, and the children of every city. We left no survivors. We took only the livestock for plunder, and the spoils of the cities which we took from Aurora, which is on the bank of the river Arnon, and from the city that is in the valley, all the way to Gilead. There was not one city too strong for us. The Lord our God delivered all to us. Only you did not come near the land of the Ammonites, nor to any place on the river Jabbok, nor to the cities in the hill country, nor to any place the Lord our God had forbidden us. And that's the end of Deuteronomy chapter 2. Here's a thought, okay? I know a lot of people do think that there's a lot to the ancient astronaut theory, right? And there could be, to where the Lord God that we're hearing about in the Old Testament in actuality is some sort of extraterrestrial or alien. Maybe more evolved species of what we are as human beings, right? What if there were other gods or beings who were what we consider to be God, if you want to subscribe to that ancient astronaut theory, right? Who were all, they all created their own version of human. Maybe there were multiple Gardens of Eden. And the reason I'm talking about this is because as I move forward as an independent investigative blogger, these are themes that are going to come into place when it comes to different interviews I do and different things that I cover. But today, we keep unearthing different versions of what a hominid is, right? What a human is supposed to be. It was questionable at one point in time whether or not modern humans and Neanderthals were alive at the same time. Not only were they alive at the same time, they were intermingling. And there's some people today who do embody a tremendous amount of Neanderthal DNA, more than what they're saying in the mainstream media. So I kind of look at these early books of the Bible, not early, but these books of the Bible within the Old Testament, if you want to adhere to the ancient astronaut theory, as kind of a manifesto of the being at that time who beat their peers in the chess game that was Earth, when it came to whose group of humans were going to become the dominant group of humans, and that we're going to essentially take over the majority of the Earth. I think it's very interesting that there were certain groups at this time that the Lord God did not want the people to harass or take over, because God, essentially the wilderness was kind of like a training ground, because it toughened up his people a bit. Every time he got mad at them, sometimes he was sometimes the anger of God seemed just, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I think it might have been an excuse to push them out into the wilderness again, just to toughen them up. But they did end up becoming, this group of people did become tough, but there were certain groups that they didn't go against. And I'm wondering if that was because maybe in God world, there were treaties made with, and I know some of what I'm saying is essentially blasphemy, but it's just a thought. What if God had peers, or has peers, to where God was like, all right, but God number two, I'm not going to have my little army, my little group come against yours. That's what I kind of think. It's interesting that my internet scuffed at the moment that I said that too, isn't it? I've had a hard time at this place where I don't have good internet, but I do like being in this particular place. All right, let's go into Deuteronomy chapter 3. Then we turned and went up the way of Bashan and Og. Oh, and by the way, this is titled King Og Defeated. Then we went and turned up the way to Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, came out against us, he and his people, to battle at Edrei. Then the Lord said to me, do not fear him, for I will deliver him and all his people and his land into your hand, and you shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon. So the Lord our God delivered Og, the king of Bashan, with all his people into our hands also, and we struck him down until there was no survivor remaining. We took all his cities at that time. There was not a city which we did not take from them. 60 cities, all region of Argob, the kingdom of Og in Bashan. All these cities were fortified with high walls, gates, and bars, besides a great many rural towns. We utterly destroyed them, as we did to Sihon, king of Heshbon, utterly destroying the men, women, and children of every city. But we took all the livestock and the spoil of the cities as plunder for ourselves. So at this time, we took the hand of the two kings of the Amorites, the land that was across the Jordan, from the river Arnon to Mount Hermon. The Sidonians call the Hermon Syrian, and the Amorites call it Sinir. All the cities of the plain, and all Gilead, and all Bashan, as far as Seleka and Edrei cities of the kingdom of Og in Bashan. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. Notably, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. Is it not in Rabbah of the children of Ammon? It is 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide, according to the cubit of a man. Division of the land. But that's interesting that they're talking about he was the only one left. That means his entire genetic line basically was wiped out. Division of the land. This is the land which we possessed at the time from Auror, which is by the river Arnon, and the half of the hill country of Gilead, and its cities I gave to the Reubenites and the Gadites. The rest of Gilead and all Bashan, the kingdom of Og, I gave to the half tribe of Manasseh. All the region of Argob, with all Bashan, it was called the land of giants. Jair, or Hare, the son of Manasseh, took the region of Argob, that is, Bashan, as far as the border of Geshurites and the Maccathites, and called the villages after his own name, Havoth Jair, as it is to this day. I gave Gilead to Machir. The Reubenites and the Gadites I gave the territory from Gilead, even as far as the stream bed of the river Arnon, half the valley of the border to the river Jabbok, which is the border of the Ammonites, the plain also, with the Jordan, as the border from Kinnereth, as far as the east side of the Sea of Arabah, that is, the Dead Sea, below the slopes of Pisgah. Then I commanded you at the same time, saying, the Lord your God has given you the land to possess it. All you men of valor shall pass over armed before your brothers, the children of Israel, but your wives and your little ones and your livestock, for I know that you have much livestock, shall remain in your cities, which I have given you until the Lord has given rest to your brothers, as well as to you, and until they also possess the land which the Lord your God has given them beyond the Jordan. Then each of you shall return to his possession, which I have given you. Moses forbidden to cross the Jordan. I commanded Joshua at that time, saying, your eyes have seen all that the Lord your God has done to these two kings. So shall the Lord do to all the kingdoms where you pass. Do not fear them, for the Lord your God, he shall fight for you. So in other words, God's telling these people, look, I can already take care of all this for you. It's an automatic win. I pleaded with the Lord at that time, saying, O Lord God, you have begun to show your servant your greatness and your mighty hand. For what God is there in heaven or in earth that can do according to your works and according to your might? Let me, I pray, go over and see the good land that is beyond the Jordan, that good hill country, and Lebanon. And this is a good lesson when it comes to having faith. I think that sometimes in life you reach a point to where you become kind of tapped in. I'm not sure what leads to feeling that way. Maybe it's age. Maybe it's going through certain experiences. Maybe it's encountering certain energies that our five senses cannot perceive. Could be a lot of things, but sometimes I think we get so wrapped up in the present and thinking to ourselves, okay, how am I going to accomplish this particular goal that I have? Or how am I going to get my life to a particular state that I want it to be in? And of course, for somebody who's well organized or somebody who's, at the least methodical, we think to ourselves, okay, I got to make a plan. Let me write out or type out whatever it is that I want to do and start taking steps to achieve the goal, right? And then sometimes we find ourselves getting frustrated when things thwart our steps to achieve the goal, when things intercede, or maybe people or situations purposely intend to intervene to try to stop you. But I think that once you reach a stage, and not just wanting to achieve a goal, but knowing that you can achieve a goal, or realizing that you have a clear mental picture of whatever goal it is that you want to achieve, once you're able to really see it, smell it, hear it, taste it, touch it, you don't really have to worry about the process and the present so much when it comes to getting there. At that point, you can kind of hand it over to God, which is faith, and say, I can kind of just sit back and relax and not do anything. Because I think that whenever we have a goal, here's what I think about goals. I think goals in actuality are what the real gift of free will is that God gave us. And I think that when we fully exercise making goals and doing the steps to achieving goals, that's when we're fully taking advantage of that gift of free will that God gave us. And I think that when we fully take advantage of free will, that's when God is like, you know what? I'm going to make it to where you don't have to work so hard. I'm going to do it for you to where you get to your goal faster because you realized how awesome free will is. And some people, I don't think, understand how important free will is. And that's, I think, another reason why I do like the Bible and I like Christianity, because you learn about angels and you learn about how the ones that went against God became demons. And the reason that some of them got so upset to where they had to become demons was because they were so jealous about free will. They don't have it. It's only something that humans got to have. So I think that's interesting. And it's interesting that Deuteronomy chapter 3 did kind of touch on that a little bit. But then again, I injected my opinion. All right, so here we go into Deuteronomy chapter 4. Moses commands obedience. Obedience. Obedience is a word that I do not like very much. If there's such a thing as previous lives, it's possible that I elevated from being a very well-trained dog to a human. Considering how much I hate the word obedience. But we're delving into Christianity today. Another day we'll go into some religions that talk about reincarnation, because I do believe to an extent, even though I'm a Christian, that there's quite a bit to reincarnation. I mean, Jesus Christ was reincarnated. So you do have an instance of reincarnation in the Bible. Moses commands obedience. Now, therefore, listen, O Israel, to the statutes and the judgments which I am teaching to you, or teaching you to do, so that you may live, and go in to possess the land which the Lord, the God of your fathers, is giving you. You shall not add the word which I am commanding you, nor shall you take anything from it, so that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did at Baal Peor. For the Lord your God has destroyed from among you all the men who follow Baal of Peor. But you held fast to the Lord your God. But you who held fast to the Lord your God are alive to this day, every one of you. This is interesting that they're talking about Baal in this. Baal was a competitor to the God of the Israelites of that time. I want to talk a little bit about that real fast. Let me Google something. Just so that all of you out there who may not be familiar with who or what Baal is do know, because there's still, you would be surprised as to how many people do still worship Baal to this day. That never stopped. A lot of things that are in the Bible never stopped, even to this day. When you type in Baal in the Bible in Google, and Baal is spelled Baal, the first thing that comes up is an AI overview. It says in the Bible, Baal is the name for multiple false gods or idols, but is most often used to refer to the Canaanite Phoenician god of fertility, rain, the sun, and storms. Baal was considered the supreme god and master of all other gods, and many cities had their own Baal. And I'm going to show y'all if I can find. Often it's depicted as kind of like a bull human hybrid creature. And the children who were offered often to the various versions of Baal. This. Do I want to talk about this now or not? I will. I think it's interesting that Baal is often depicted as a bull or a cow, right? And within certain communities that some of you out there know that I've covered, they use the term lol cow. And like somehow they're, draining something from this cow. In other words, milking something from this cow. In other words, a certain kind of energy, because anyone who's considered a lol cow often suffers from angst, feeling like they're being drained of their energy because they're being bullied, made fun of, and whatnot. But again, it's interesting that children are being sacrificed to this, because one of my main criticisms when it's come to some of these online communities is how minors are often being injected into the media that is meant to be consumed for adults. And some of the more popular streams now at this point do encompass, if not an actual minor, the idea of a minor. And that's what I think is a bit of a metaphorical sacrifice, or a actual energetic sacrifice to this thing, Baal. A lot of people who do seek material world fame tend to worship this particular creature. I'm going to show you another depiction of it. Cows and bulls, very popular icons for things that I wouldn't recommend many of you get into. Like, remember the golden calf from the Ten Commandments and whatnot? Because when you get into some of those things, there is no going back. Okay, so where did we leave off? I guess here. See, I have taught you statutes and judgments, just as the Lord my God commanded me, that you should do in the land where you are entering to possess it. Therefore keep and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great, who has a God so near to it as the Lord our God is in all things whenever we call on him? And what nation is there so great, that has statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law, which I am setting before you today? And it is interesting because the people of Israel, they were particularly close to their Lord, or who was presenting themselves as God. The other nations, not so much. And also, they had been settled for a while. And think about it like this. Let's say that you are some sort of an exemplified, more evolved form of human, right? And again, we're going back to the ancient astronaut thinking, right? If you were to create your own little petri dish of scaled down humans from yourself, you would want them to be safe and secure in whatever environment it is that you created for them. So by default, you would encourage them to create a city, right? That's how you know, to cultivate them, let them grow. You could nurture them and everything. And if you're a God on the go, perhaps it would be to your benefit to almost put them in a little city, even with a wall around it. It's almost like you're putting your little experiment in a playpen. You don't have to worry about them getting into so much trouble. But the God of the Christian Bible, when it came to the Israelites, definitely had a war, knew the art of war very well when it came to wanting to take over a certain area of earth for the version of human that they created. Again, we're going back to the ancient astronaut theory. Instead of letting his people settle in one area where they would in time weaken because they got too comfortable, he kept them out and about moving. Never really let them rest. Wandering in the desert, and they bitched and complained about it all the while, but it strengthened them to where toward the end of this phase of the Bible, almost anyone that they encountered, they would just freaking dominate. A lot of people are afraid of people from Israel to this day because of a level of strength that they do embody. And to this day, they keep that straight. That they make their kids go into the army for I don't know how many years, but it's mandatory. It strengthens you not to be in one place for too long. So if you're somebody out there who has ever thought to themselves, if you're somebody out there who has felt like there's nowhere that you fit in, or that things in your life for whatever reason, are not letting you settle and rest, maybe there's a reason why. Maybe it's because if you were to, you wouldn't be as strong as you need to be for something else down the road that you're supposed to encounter. I do think that in certain occasions or on certain occasions. Only give heed to yourself and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. But teach them to your sons and your grandsons, especially concerning the day you stood before the Lord your God at Horeb, when the Lord said to me, gather the people together to me, so that I will let them hear my words, so that they may learn to fear me all the days they shall live on earth, and so they may teach their children. Then you came near and stood at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire up to the midst of heaven, with darkness, a cloud, a thick cloud. Then the Lord spoke to you out of the midst of fire. You heard the sound of the words, but saw no form. Only a voice was heard. He declared to you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, even the 10 Commandments, and he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. The Lord commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, so that you might do to them in the land which you are crossing over to possess. Idolatry forbidden. Again, we're in Deuteronomy chapter 4. Give good care to yourselves, for you saw no form on the day that the Lord spoke to you in Horeb from the midst of the fire, lest you corrupt yourselves and make a graven image for yourselves in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. And beware, lest you lift up your eyes to heaven when you see the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the host of heaven. You are led astray and worship them and serve them, that which the Lord your God has allotted to all nations under the whole heaven. But the Lord has taken you and brought you out of the iron furnace from Egypt, to be to him a people of inheritance, as you are today. Furthermore, the Lord was angry with me because of you, and swore that I should not cross over the Jordan, and that I would not go into the good land which the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance. So I must die in this land. I shall not cross over the Jordan, but you shall go over and possess that good land. Watch yourselves, so that you do not forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he made with you. And make yourself a graven image, or the likeness of anything, as the Lord your God has forbidden you. For the Lord your God is consuming fire. He is a jealous God. When you produce children and grandchildren, you have remained a long time in the land, and you corrupt yourselves and make a graven image, or the likeness of anything, and do evil in the sight of the Lord your God to provoke him to anger. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that you will surely and suddenly perish from off the land that you are going across the Jordan to possess. You will not prolong your days on it, but shall be completely destroyed. The Lord shall scatter you among the people. You shall be left few in numbers among the nations where the Lord shall lead you. There you will serve gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see nor hear. Which neither see nor hear nor eat nor smell. But it from there you will seek the Lord your God, you will find him. If you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul, when you are in distress and all these things come upon you, even in the latter days, if you turn to the Lord, and your God shall be obedient to his voice. For the Lord your God is a merciful God. He will not abandon you or destroy you or forget the covenant of your fathers, which he swore to them. Indeed, ask about the days that are past, which were before you, and since the day that God created man on earth, and ask from one end of heavens to the other, whether there has ever been any such thing as this great thing, or has anything like it ever been heard? So, according to the book of Deuteronomy, man is God's greatest creation. Like, if you really take the time to think about that being human is the greatest creation of the Creator, by default, your self-esteem is going to go sky high. I like thinking that thought sometimes. But I'm going to read that again because it's I'm going to screenshot it actually because it's a very beautiful phrase. It's almost like a love note from God to people. Indeed, ask about the days that are past, which were before you, since the day that God created man on earth, and ask from one end of the heavens to the other. So even if you don't believe in Christianity, if you don't believe in God like the Bible talks about God, if you want to go ancient astronauts and that whole way of thought, pretend that God is a more evolved human with things that we would consider special powers, and maybe there's competitor gods. But the heavens, what is that? A ship? Is it another planet? Another reality? But in this phrase, it says from one end of the heavens to the other. There's never been anything as freaking awesome as a human being that was created. That's a big thing. And I think if more people were to just think about that thought sometimes, they wouldn't feel so bad. And that is why I don't think that we've been told exactly the truth about space and what space is and how reality is actually constructed. I'm not going to say that I believe in the flat earth theory, in that there's a flat earth and a dome, a firmament, and that's it. I'm not going to say that. But it does seem, and I've heard other people say what I'm about to say. I'm not the first person to think about this particular thought, okay? But it does seem that the more that science tries to pull us away from the Bible, the less important we feel and the less valuable we feel as human beings. Which is why you do have some people who are extensively religious who don't believe in anything having to do with science, saying that science is totally bogus and that it's meant to pull us away from our spirituality. I believe that there is a lot to science. I'm not a scientist, though. I believe that there's a lot to spirituality and religion. I feel closer to spirituality and religion than I do to science. I'm glad you're enjoying the stream today. I needed to catch up on my Bible reading, and I managed to get through the book of Numbers. Some of you who are watching, you may want to chat. I only have the chat enabled on my official Alexandra Mayers YouTube channel for this, not on the other platforms. I just felt like sharing this stream on the other channels because I just know that there's some people who might have forgotten about God a little bit over there. But this is an Alexandra Mayers live stream. Yeah. But yeah, from one end of the heavens to the other, there hadn't ever been anything created like a human. You know, so feel good about being a human being. Feel good about who you are. God wants you to. I'll read it one more time. Indeed, ask about the days that are past, which were before you, and since the day that God created man on earth, and ask from one end of the heavens to the other, whether there has been any such thing as this great thing, or has anything like it ever been heard? That's what pissed off what we call Lucifer or the devil today. Because God liked humans more than even the very, 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 very best angel. He couldn't take it. Has people ever heard the voice of God speaking out of the midst of the fire, as you have heard and lived? Or has God ever tried to take for himself a nation from the midst of another nation, by trials, by signs, and by wonders, and by war, and by a mighty hand, and by a stretched out arm, and by great terrors, according to all that the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your eyes? To you it was shown so that you might know that the Lord, he is God. There is no one else besides him. Out of heaven he let you hear his voice, so that he might instruct you. And on earth he showed you his great fire, and you heard his words out of the midst of fire. Because he loved our fathers, therefore he chose their descendants after them, and personally brought you out of Egypt with his mighty power to drive out nations from before you, greater and mightier than you are, to bring you in, to give you their land for an inheritance. It is today. Know therefore today, and consider it in your heart, that the Lord, he is God, in heaven above and on the earth below. There is no other. Therefore you shall keep his statutes and his commandments, which I command you this day, so that it may go well with you and with your children after you, so that you may prolong your days in the land which the Lord your God gives you forever. Cities of refuge. So again, Deuteronomy at this point is just kind of reviewing a lot of things that we went over before, but from a different perspective and in a different frame set. Oh, I know a lot of people don't know I have my main channel. I'm mainly going through my main channel, Alexandra Mayers, right now, but because it's Bible reading, I felt like there were some other people on my other projects who follow me who might find this interesting. I think a lot of people need a reminder about a few things. But cities of refuge, this is going to be good because this is the introduction of loopholes in the Bible when it comes to being unjustly accused of a crime. Then Moses set apart 3 cities across the Jordan, toward the east, that the manslayer might flee there. That is, anyone who killed his neighbor unintentionally, without hating him in time past, could flee to one of these cities and live. So, too many people, I think, were probably dying by accident at that time. And I think probably there were some people who were considered lawmakers at that time that were becoming a little bit overly zealous with the death penalty. Okay, let's continue. And hey, Onyx, good to see you. Same to you, Lava. All right. Bazir in the wilderness is the plateau of the Reubenites, and Ramoth and Gilead, the Gadites, and Golan and Bashan of the Manassites. Introduction to the law. This is the law which Moses set before the children of Israel. These are the testimonies and the statutes and the ordinances which Moses spoke to the children of Israel after they came out of Egypt, on this side of the Jordan, in the valley over against Beth Peor, in the land of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon, whom Moses and the children of Israel struck down after they had come out of Egypt. They possessed his land and the land of Og, king of Bashan, the two kings of the Amorites, who were across the Jordan toward the east. From Aroer, which is by the edge of the river Arnon, even as far as Mount Sihon, that is Harmon, with all the Arabah across the Jordan to the east, even to the Sea of Arabah under the slopes of Pisgah. Deuteronomy chapter 5. And to those of you who came in here, thanks for coming in. I'm just going to really read until I can't really read anymore. That way I'm caught up with my reading of the Bible. It's been a while. Something about today made me feel like today was a good day to do this. I don't know what exactly. I have an inkling as to what, but you know. All right, Deuteronomy 5, the 10 Commandments. Then Moses called all Israel and said to them, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and ordinances which I am speaking in your hearing today, so that you may learn them and keep them and do them. And those of you who want to go back to earlier mentions of the 10 Commandments, go to the book of Exodus, chapter 20, 1 through 17. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. The Lord did not make this covenant with our fathers, but with us. We are living now and here today. The Lord talked with you face to face on the mountain from the midst of fire. I stood between the Lord and you at that time to declare to you the word of the Lord. For you were afraid because of the fire and would not go up to the mountain. He said, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. Let's stop there in regards to how the construction of earth is described, which is why I don't think that we fully know exactly what earth is just yet, because it talks about the waters beneath the earth. I think that there's more water on our planet than we're aware of. And I think that that's how the flood was done. If you have you guys ever seen that movie Noah that came out? They kind of the way that they animated the flood occurring, and it is described this way in the Bible. They talk about waters coming from within the earth that aren't just the oceans. I think that there's something to that. We'll talk about that another day. All right, where are we? You shall not bow down to them nor serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children and on the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. So now it gets into the commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not exonerate anyone who takes his name in vain. Keep the Sabbath day to keep it holy, just as the Lord your God has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your ox, nor your donkey, nor any of your livestock, nor the foreigner that is within your gates, so that your male servant and your female servant may rest, as well as you. Some of these commandments, I think, are just for health and mental well-being, mental health, because you do have to rest, and I don't think that we rest enough nowadays. I know I don't. I feel like when you don't rest enough, life intervenes and forces you to rest. My hurting my foot back in April, I think was God telling me to slow down a little bit. So I have. I have. Remember that you are a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you, or I'm sorry, that you were a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out from there with a mighty hand and by an outstretched arm. Therefore, your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother, just as the Lord your God has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged, and that you may go well with you in the land which the Lord your God is giving you. And now here's the simple commandments, very simple. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor shall you covet your neighbor's house, his field, his male servant, his female servant, his ox, his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. In other words, don't run around being a hater and being jealous. Jealousy, God does not like that. These are the words the Lord spoke to all your assembly at the mountain, out from the midst of the fire, the cloud, and the thick darkness, with a great voice. And he added no more. He wrote them on 2 tablets of stone and gave them to me. When you heard the voice out of the midst of the darkness, while the mountain did not burn with fire, you came near to me, all the heads of your tribes and your elders. You said, see, the Lord our God has shown his glory and his greatness, and we have heard his voice from the midst of the fire. We have seen this day that God speaks with man, yet he lives. Now therefore, why should we die? For this great fire will consume us, if we hear the voice of the Lord our God any more, then we will die. For who is there of all flesh who has heard the voice of the living God speaking out of the midst of the fire as we have, and lived? Go near and hear all the Lord our God will say. Then speak to us all that the Lord our God will speak to you, and we will hear and do it. The Lord heard the sound of your words when you spoke to me. And the Lord said to me, I have heard the sound of the words of this people which have spoken to you. They have done well in all that they have spoken. Oh, that there were such a heart in them, that they would fear me and always keep all my commandments, that it might be well with them and with their children forever. Go say to them, return to your tents, but as for you, stand here by me, so that I may speak to you all the commandments and the statutes and the ordinances which you shall teach them, and they may keep them in the land which I am giving them to possess. Therefore, be careful to do as the Lord your God has commanded you. I like when it's just kind of put out there. I think Deuteronomy is very to the point. It's basically saying, do as God says. We all need to do more so as God has commanded. I definitely do. I definitely do. I bet a lot of you out there do too. You shall not turn aside to the right hand or to the left. You shall walk in all the ways which the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may live, so that it may be well with you, and that you may prolong your days in the land which you shall possess. All right, I'm going to drink some water, then we're going to get into Deuteronomy chapter 6, subheaded, the greatest commandment. That should be interesting. All right, here we go. The greatest commandment, Deuteronomy chapter 6. Now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the ordinances which the Lord your God commanded to teach you, so that you may observe them in the land which you are crossing over to possess, so that you might fear the Lord your God in order to keep all his statutes and his commandments which I command you, and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, so that your days may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Israel, and be careful to do it, so that it may be well with you, and so that you may multiply greatly, as the Lord, the God of your fathers, has promised you in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. These words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. So even at that point, or at this point in the Bible, God is saying, have religious scripture in your home. If you're somebody who travels, it's a good idea to either routinely review the Bible or have something that's a physical reminder to you of your spirituality, preferably of Christianity. Just because it makes you feel better. It just does. It's good to have little reminders. It doesn't have to be anything major or big, but just something. Just something. Then it shall be when the Lord your God brings you into the land which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you great and fine cities, which you did not build, and houses full of all good things which you did not fill, and hewn cisterns which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant, and you eat, and are full. Then beware lest you forget the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And it is interesting when you think about it, how God did condition these people that he led out of Egypt to become warriors. That was why they were they were wandering. It wasn't even so much, it was for being ungrateful to an extent, but why were they ungrateful? Because they were too soft. I think part of the reason, really, that people remain slaves as long as they do is because they become too comfortable. It's a lesson that's in the Bible, and it's a lesson that we know through history. You don't have to be a Christian to know that. One of the best ways to keep somebody enslaved is to make slavery comfortable. Really think about that. Really think about that. And think about how much comfort you either have or don't have in your life. And then think to yourself, maybe there's a reason as to why you have either too much or too little comfort. You have to think to yourself, what am I engaging in? How am I behaving? What am I involved in? And what is it that maybe a higher power needs me to do? Something to think about. You shall fear the Lord your God and serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall not go after other gods, the gods of the people which surround you, for the Lord your God is a jealous God among you. Which is interesting. That's interesting that repeatedly in the Bible it's talked about that God is a jealous God, that God doesn't want you to be about any other idea. But God does not want people to be jealous. So here's the question. Again, we can go back to the ancient astronaut mindset. And throughout my reading, at least until I decide not to, I am going to consistently bring up the ancient astronaut theory with my commentary because I can see how it could be, meaning the ancient astronaut theory. I can see how it could be a reality. It doesn't really resonate with me, but I see how it could be, because if there was some sort of a different sort of human, something that was a bit more than what we are, at least at this stage in the game, maybe that being thought to itself, okay, what, even though I'm kind of crippling the earth human a little bit, just so I can retain control of it for now, what within my ultimate creation that's within me, am I going to remove or ask for them to oppress within themselves so that they can even be, so that maybe they don't quite embody certain things that I don't like embodying. When I say I'm saying that as if I were this ultimate being in the ancient astronaut theory. And maybe one of those things would be jealousy and envy. Because jealousy and envy, those are really two qualities that do hold you back and distract you in life. It's not a pretty thing to experience or to observe. So this Lord, the God, is a jealous God, but he doesn't want people to envy each other. That's a big thing to think about. You shall not tempt the Lord your God as you tempted him in Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God, and his testimonies and his statutes, which he has commanded you. You shall do what is right and good in the sight of the Lord, that it may be well with you, that you may go in and possess the good land which the Lord swore to your fathers, to drive out all your enemies before you, just as the Lord has spoken. When your son asks you in time to come, saying, what do the testimonies and the statutes and the judgments mean, which the Lord our God has commanded you? Then you shall say to your son, we were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And the Lord showed great and devastating signs and wonders upon Egypt, upon Pharaoh, and upon all his household before our eyes. He brought us out from there so that he might bring us in and give us the land which he swore to our fathers. And again, that was such an interesting war tactic, or chess move, even for God. And if you want to, again, subscribe to the ancient astronaut theory for whoever that being was, because that being decided, hey, I'm going to save time. And I'm going to make it to where I can actually be more present for my creation by going ahead and letting my version of human become enslaved. Hell, let my competitor take care and feed and nurture and even grow my population of people that I created. Okay? Because it would have saved time and resources. Just think about this from, imagine like a science lab. Okay? You have Christian God, and then you have, other scientists who are God to whatever beings it is that they're creating in their own little petri dishes on earth. But the Christian God decided, okay, now I'm going to go ahead and bring, and now that, my little group, somebody else thought that they'd taken him over, but I'm going to beam myself down into the petri dish, bring my little humans out, and then strengthen them by putting them into God boot camp. That's what that whole wandering all around all that time was. It made this group freaking badasses to where they didn't have to waste time building the infrastructure for what their civilization was supposed to become. They took it over from the other groups. That was smart. That was smart. That's what's great about the Bible. Every time you read through certain books of the Bible, you get something different from it. every time. Let me start this paragraph again. When your son asks you in times to come, saying, "What do the testimonies and statutes of the judgments mean, which the Lord our God has commanded you?" Then you shall say to your son, "We were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And the Lord showed great and devastating signs and wonders upon Egypt, upon Pharaoh, and upon all his household before our eyes. He brought us out from there, so that he might bring us in, to give us the land which he swore to our fathers. The Lord commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear the Lord our God, for our good always, that he might preserve us, as he has to this day. It will be our righteousness if we are careful to keep all these commandments before the Lord our God, just as he has commanded us." You know, reading this and contending with certain things in my life that I'm contending with right now, the reason that you do have some Americans who define themselves as white who are extensively racist today is due to fear. And the reason that they are afraid is because there are a lot of parallels to what African Americans have contended with within the United States of America. There's a lot of parallels to what the Israelites contended with upon exiting Egypt and finding their way. The racism is fear because in the end the Israelites they took over. And it was God that helped them do it, because even though slavery actually is allowed in the Bible, but you have to be able to take care of your slaves if you have them. I think that there are some white Americans who do know of the biblical stories and who have come to realize that some of what's happened does parallel what happened in Egypt before the Israelites were taken from them. So I think the lesson here is when people don't want to be slaves anymore, when they realize that it's just not working for them, you have to let them go. The Egyptians did not want to let their slaves go. If they had let them go from the start, certain things would not have been so difficult. And it's been the same thing in the United States of America. There are still some white Americans who truly believe that they are entitled to have slaves, and they do view people who look like me as being beneath them. And that, even though it's just a mentality, it's akin to the Egyptians not letting their slaves go. People gotta let it go. Because when you don't, things happen. Deuteronomy chapter 7, the chosen people. When the Lord your God brings you into the land which you are entering to possess, and has driven out many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than you. And when the Lord your God delivers them before you, and you strike them down, then you must utterly destroy them. You shall make no covenant with them, nor show mercy to them. What is more, you shall not intermarry with them. You shall not give your daughters to their sons, or take their daughters for your sons. For they will turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods. Biblically approved prejudice, some might say. Biblically approved racism, some might say. That's Deuteronomy chapter 7. Wow. Then the anger of the Lord will be inflamed against you, and he will quickly destroy you. And this is how you shall deal with them. You shall destroy their altars and break down their images and cut down their Asherim and burn their graven images with fire. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be his special people, treasured above all peoples who are in the face of the earth. The Lord did not set his love on you nor choose you because you were more in number than any of the peoples, for you were the fewest of all the peoples. But it is because the Lord loved you and because he kept the oath which he swore to your fathers. The Lord brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you out of the house of slavery, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Know therefore the Lord your God, he is God, the faithful God, who keeps covenant and mercy with them who love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. Yet he repays those who hate him to their face to destroy them. He will not be slack with them who hates him. He will repay him to his face. So in other words, God's not going to be, like, I'm going to get you, but you're not going to know it's me. God of the Old Testament was like, okay, you're really going to know it's me. Hi, I'm here to kick your ass. Therefore, keep the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which I command you today by doing them. If you listen to these judgments, keep them and do them, then the Lord your God shall keep with you the covenant and the mercy which he swore to your fathers. He will love you and bless you and multiply you. He will also bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your land, your grain and your wine and your oil, the increase of your herd and the young of your flock in the land which he swore to your fathers to give you. You shall be blessed above all people. There will not be male or female barren among you or among your livestock. And that was a big thing back then because it was all about having as many kids as you possibly could. The Lord will take away from you all sickness and will afflict you with none of the evil diseases of Egypt, which you know, but will lay them on all those who hate you. You must consume all the peoples whom the Lord your God will deliver to you. Your eye shall have no pity on them, nor shall you serve their gods, for that will be a snare to you. If you say in your heart, these are the nations, these nations are greater than I, How can I dispossess them? You shall not be afraid of them. You must surely remember what the Lord your God did to Pharaoh and to all Egypt, the great trials which your eyes saw, and the signs, the wonders, and the mighty hand, and the stretched out arm by which the Lord your God brought you out. So the Lord your God will do to all the people of whom you are afraid. Moreover, the Lord your God will send the hornet among them until they who are left and hide themselves from you perish. You must not be frightened of them, for the Lord your God is among you, a great and awesome God. The Lord your God will drive out those nations before you, little by little. You will not be able to destroy them all at once, lest the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. But the Lord your God will deliver them to you and will throw them into a great confusion until they are destroyed. He will deliver their kings into your hand so that you may erase their names from under heaven. No man will be able to stand before you until you have destroyed them. You must burn the graven images of their gods with fire. You must not desire the silver or gold that is on them, nor take any of it, lest you be snared by them, for it is an abomination to the Lord your God. You shall not bring an abomination into your house, lest you become cursed like it. But you must absolutely detest and abhor it, for it is a cursed thing. So that's the end of Deuteronomy 7. That was kind of intense. Deuteronomy 7 really made my mind kind of, the wheels in my mind turn there. Definitely. You know, one thing I really like about following some of the IRL live streamers, and what I've liked, when it's come to me having the chance to meet a few of them, and it really has been a handful. It's been more than I would say most, but it's been a handful. There's been a lot that I've seen some of the streamers go through that directly parallels stories in the Bible. I was thinking that one day I would do a whole series about that, and I would outline exactly which story in the Bible some of the streamers probably inadvertently acted out, even though it was their real life. Thanks, Onyx. I appreciate that. But I'm not shy about injecting my religious beliefs into my commentary, into my writing, into things like that. Even my reporting on some of the most trivial things out there, things that I think are interesting, but I know many of you don't find interesting. I'm not shy about it because when I left the adult entertainment industry, it was specifically due to divine intervention. If Shelley Lubin had not gone through everything that she'd gone through in her life that led her to intervene in my life, right when she did, I would not be sitting here right now. I would be dead. And I think about that a lot. And I do not like that she is dead. I know that everything is meant to be. I know that God had a plan. I don't like that she's dead. Not at all. Because the world still needs things like the pink cross. not just for the porn industry, for just what it is to be human. What she taught me in her death is a part of what drives me, you know. It really is. If she hadn't been stalked the way that I've been stalked, you know, she would still be here. Some of you wonder why I do what I do. It's because I know the kind of energy that killed her. Part of why I never stopped after she died was because I did want to avenge her. And I did. I think I'm going to rebuild the pink cross. Not right now, but one day. Deuteronomy chapter 8. Remember the Lord your God. You must carefully keep all the commandments that I am commanding you today, so that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which the Lord swore to your fathers. You must remember that the Lord your God led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you and to prove you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. He humbled you and let you suffer hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that proceeds out the mouth of the Lord. Your clothing did not wear out on you, nor did your feet swell these 40 years. You must also consider in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so the Lord your God disciplines you. Therefore, you must keep the commandments of the Lord your God, to walk in his ways and to fear him. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and springs that flow out of the valleys and hills, a land of wheat, barley, vines, fig trees, and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land where you may eat bread without scarcity, in which you will not lack anything, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you may dig copper. When you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless the Lord your God with the good land which he has given you. Beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes, which I am commanding you today. Otherwise, when you have eaten and are full and have built and occupied good houses, when your herds and your flocks multiply, and your silver and your gold multiply, and all that you have multiplies, then your heart will become proud, and you will forget the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery, who led you through that great and terrible wilderness, where there were fiery serpents and scorpions and drought, where there was no water, who brought forth for you out who brought where there was no water, who brought forth for you out of the rock of flint, who fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your fathers did not know, that he might humble you, that he might prove you, to do good for you in the end. Otherwise, you may say in your heart, my power, the might of my hand, have gained me this wealth. But you must remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to get wealth, so that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers as it is today. I'm going to reread that because it's so profound. Otherwise, you may say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gained me this wealth. But you must remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to get wealth, so that he may establish his covenant, for which he swore to your fathers as it is today. So, in other words, God is saying, the reason I'm doing all this cool stuff for you is so that you can talk about me. And what's wrong with that? Nothing. If you ever forget the Lord your God and go after other gods and serve them and worship them, then I testify against you today that you will surely perish. The Christian God says, worship me or die. Just like the nations which the Lord will destroy before you, so shall you perish, because you would not be obedient to the voice of the Lord your God. Yeah. I love Old Testament God. Deuteronomy chapter 9 is titled, Not Because of Righteousness. Hear, O Israel, you are to cross over the Jordan today and go in to possess nations greater and mightier than you. Great cities fortified up to heaven, a great and tall people, the children of the Anakites, whom you know and whom you've heard it said. Who can stand before the children of Anak? Understand therefore today that the Lord your God is he who goes over before you as a consuming fire. He shall destroy them and shall bring them down before you, so that you drive them out to destroy them quickly, as the Lord has spoken to you. So again, this guy was like, okay, I'm going to do something that really hasn't been done before in this giant experiment that is Earth, if you want to think about the ancient astronaut theory. And this is even, see, everyone likes to think about the New Testament as being the only instance of when God came down from heaven to truly interact with the people of earth, okay? Through Jesus Christ. Not necessarily. I think Jesus, the situation with Jesus, which I believe in full force was real, but I think that before then there was still a way for God to come down, as we know the Bible actually talks about it. It was that Ark of the Covenant, and there were probably other vehicles in ways too, but it was God still couldn't really get the full effect because the power of God was too much for the regular human to withstand. Ancient astronaut theory might, they would say, well, maybe it had to do with germs, maybe it had to do with a form of radioactivity. Could have been a lot of things. There was still the divisiveness between man and what God is, which is why, and it took a long time through the interbreeding to be able to create Jesus so that what God was could really experience what it is to be here in this world. That was the only way. That's really amazing to think about, especially being that we're living in a time now to where we're doing so much with cloning and creating what is going to be another form of humanity. That's why I wanted to really read through this. I know I've skipped over some, but when you get into just the lineage of some of these people that led up to Jesus, there had been divine intervention or genetic interference, a lot of selective breeding until you got to that point. That's amazing. It's about keeping track. The Christian God seems to have been more present, or maybe just more powerful than the competing gods or beings that were presenting themselves as gods at that time. Do not say in your heart, after the Lord your God has driven them out before you, on account of my righteousness, the Lord has brought me in to possess this land. But it is because of the wickedness of these nations, the Lord is driving them out before you. Okay. So it is interesting. I mean, God cleared the way for his people. And I'll tell you, when you really are living your life, acknowledging the miracles that God creates, you do start to have miracles in your life and you see things happen. I've had a lot of instances to where I didn't know what I was going to do, and then something shifts. And I've always been grateful when that happens. But I've seen it. And I know other people have seen it and experienced it too. Which is something, that's another reason why I don't have a doubt when it comes to the reality of God. But I think that I think in every generation, God shows us more and more. Because I do think that people are consistently evolving, and maybe earlier versions of humans couldn't comprehend certain things. Because when you do think about how present God was in the Israelites' lives as they were out in the desert, but still they didn't seem to have enough faith or obedience, and they actually saw God there. That's telling. It kind of makes me wonder if, like, maybe, however God was able to come down, maybe at first it was impressive, but later it wasn't. That could be a part of it too. I don't know. It is not because of your righteousness or the uprightness of your heart that you enter to possess their land, but because of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord your God drives them out before you, and that he may fulfill the word which the Lord swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Understand, therefore, that the Lord your God is not giving you this good land to possess on account of your righteousness, for you are a stubborn people. At this point, God is a little, I feel like God's a little resentful of his creation, even though it's the best thing that he's ever made, or she, or both, or neither. Maybe gender doesn't need to be assigned. Um, I think as people replicated, and the people who were closest to God's initial creation, which was what, Adam and Eve, as they died out, I think that the replications just didn't have the same pizzazz as Adam and Eve and their closer descendants had. And I think that's part of the reason, probably, why God got a little, like, it's just not the same. Because it wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't. The golden calf. Remember, and do not forget how you provoked the Lord your God to wrath in the wilderness. From the day that you departed out of the land of Egypt until you came to this place, you have been rebellious against the Lord. Also in Horeb, you provoked the Lord to wrath, so that the Lord was angry enough with you to destroy you. So here, I mean, it's being broken down. Don't piss off God. Don't piss off your maker. Don't. When I went up into the mountain to receive the tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant which the Lord made with you, then I remained on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. I did not eat bread or drink water. The Lord delivered to me 2 tablets of stone, written with the finger of God, and on them was written all the words which the Lord spoke to you at the mountain out of the midst of the fire on the day of the assembly. At the end of the 40 days and 40 nights, the Lord gave me the 2 tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant. The Lord said to me, "Arise, go down from here quickly, for your people, whom you brought out of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They are quickly turned aside from the way I commanded them. They have made a molded image for themselves." So keep in mind, this is being told from Moses' perspective. Furthermore, the Lord spoke to me, saying, "I have seen this people, and indeed they are a stubborn people." And I really do like the story of Moses because he put up with so much. And I don't think we really acknowledge how much he had to put up with, because not only were the people ungrateful to God, but because Moses was closer to God than really anyone else, they gave him grief too. And he had to kind of be like the intermediary between the people and God. And Moses, at times, did kind of act as God's counselor, or at least translator, when it came to human behavior, because there were times to where God was just like, maybe I just need to completely just wipe out what I did, because this is getting really aggravating. But Moses was like, look, let me talk to them. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, the Lord spoke to me, saying, "I have seen this people, and they indeed are a stubborn people. Let me alone, so that I may destroy them and blot out their name from under heaven. And I will make of you a nation mightier and greater than they." So I returned and came down from the mountain and the mount burned with fire, and the 2 tablets of the covenant were in my hands. I looked, and indeed, you had sinned against the Lord your God, and had made yourselves a molded calf. So this was the instance when Moses was kind of like looking at the people that he was putting up with and leading, who were all ungrateful, because he has, and I guess they didn't think that he was going to come back down off the mountain, even though he said that he was going to do it. And he's been a person of his word up to this point. But he did specifically say to them, don't make a graven image. You don't need to go back to the Egyptian ways. But they did. A calf. All the stuff with cows. You had quickly turned aside out of the way which the Lord had commanded you. I took the 2 tablets and threw them out of my hands and broke them before your eyes. I fell down before the Lord as at the first 40 days and 40 nights. I did not eat bread or drink water because of all your sins which you had committed, doing what was wicked in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger. For I was afraid of the anger and hot displeasure with which the Lord was wrathful against you to destroy you. But the Lord listened to me at that same time also. The Lord was angry enough with Aaron to destroy him, so I prayed for Aaron at that time. I took your sin, the calf which you had made, and burned it with fire, and crushed it, and ground it very small, until it was as small as dust. Then I threw the dust into the brook, and descended down from the mountain. Also at Taberah, and at Massa, and at Kibroth, and Hatava, you provoked the Lord to wrath. Likewise, when the Lord sent you from Kadesh Barnea, saying, go up and possess the land which I have given you, then you rebelled against the commandment of the Lord your God, and you did not believe him or listen to his voice. You have been rebellious against the Lord from the day I knew you. So I fell down before the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. I fell down because the Lord had said he would destroy you. I prayed, therefore, to the Lord and said, O Lord God, do not destroy your people, your inheritance, which you have redeemed through your greatness, which you have brought out of Egypt with a mighty hand. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Do not look at the stubbornness of this people, or at their wickedness or their sin. Otherwise, the land from which you brought us may say, because the Lord was not able to bring them into the land which he promised them, and because he hated them, he has brought them out to slay them in the wilderness. Yet they are your people, your inheritance, whom you brought out your mighty power and by your stretched out arm. And that's the end of Deuteronomy 9. Let's go into Deuteronomy 10. And I'm going to plug in my thingamajig. Plug in my iPad. Okay. The second pair of tablets. Deuteronomy chapter 10. Deuteronomy really summarizes everything really well. I'm glad I'm doing this in a separate video. I wonder how many, let's see. 34 chapters in Deuteronomy. We're up to 10. Maybe we could do all of it in one day. The second pair of tablets. At that time, the Lord said to me, cut out for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first, and come up to me onto the mountain, and make an ark of wood for yourself. I will write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets which you broke, and you shall put them in the ark. So God had to God realized that people are prone to extreme emotion and anger, and the tablets were delicate, so they needed a carrying case. Hence, the Ark of the Covenant, ultimate carrying case, possibly broadcasting device also, possibly. So I made an ark of, oh gosh, I forgot how to pronounce this word. I'm going to look it up real quick because I hate mispronouncing stuff. Acacia. Okay. So I made an ark of acacia wood and cut out 2 tablets of stone, just like the first, and went up onto the mountain with the 2 tablets in my hand. He wrote on the tablets, just like the first writing, the 10 Commandments which the Lord spoke to you at the mountain of the midst of the fire on the day of the assembly. And the Lord gave them to me. I turned around and came down from the mountain and put the tablets in the ark which I had made. And there they are, just as the Lord commanded me. The children of Israel set out from Baroth of the sons of Jachan to Masorah. There Aaron died and was buried, and his son Eleazar ministered to the priest's office in his place. From there they journeyed to Gudgodah, Gudgodah to Jotbatha, a land of rivers of waters. At that time, the Lord set apart the tribe of Levi to carry the ark of the covenant of the Lord, to stand before the Lord to minister to him, and to bless in his name to this day. Therefore, Levi has no portion or inheritance with his brothers. The Lord is his inheritance, just as the Lord your God promised him. As for me, I stayed on the mountain like the first time, 40 days and 40 nights. And the Lord listened to me at that time also. The Lord was not willing to destroy you. The Lord said to me, Arise, take your journey before the people, so that they may go in and possess the land which I swore to give their fathers. The essence of the law. Now, Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you? But to fear the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, to keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes, which I am commanding you today for your good. Indeed, heaven and the highest heavens belong to the Lord your God, also the earth with all that is in it. The Lord delighted only in your fathers to love them, and he chose the descendants after them, even you above all people, as it is today. Therefore, circumcise your heart and do not be stubborn anymore. For the Lord your God is the God of gods and the Lord of lords, the great, the mighty, and the fearsome God, who is unbiased and takes no bribes. So God's just kind of flexing here. And it's like, yeah, I'm it. I'm just what it is. He executes the judgments of the orphan and the widow and loves the foreigner, giving him food and clothing. Therefore, love the foreigner, for you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. You must fear the Lord your God. You must serve him and cling to him and swear by his name. He is your praise, and he is your God, who has done for you these great and fearsome things which your eyes have seen. Your fathers went down into Egypt with 70 people, and now the Lord your God has made you as numerous as the stars of heaven. And I don't think this translation's right, because I don't think that the people at that point in time were even close to being as numerous as how many stars there are. You know, sometimes I think that the earth is overpopulated, sometimes I don't. When I feel closer to the energy of Christianity, I don't think that the world is actually overpopulated, not at all. Because if there's supposed to be as many people as there are stars, there's a lot of stars. There's not as many people as are on Earth as there are stars. All right, Deuteronomy 11, chapter 11. Love and obey. Before we do that, I'm going to take a break. I haven't used the bathroom. I'm going to take a bathroom break. Then we will come back and go into Deuteronomy 11. Initially, I was just going to go into chapter 7, but I'm feeling it. I'm really feeling it right now. So we're going to go into chapter 11 next. I'll be right back. Thanks for hanging out with me if you are. All right, folks, we are back. Let me take this thing off. Okay, we're back. And we're going into Deuteronomy chapter 11. I feel like we're kind of breezing through Deuteronomy. It's because I like Deuteronomy. That's why. That's why. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 11, love and obey. You must love the Lord your God and keep his charge, his statutes, his ordinances, and his commandments always. Know this day that I am not speaking with your children who have not known and who have not seen the discipline of the Lord your God, his greatness, his mighty hand and his outstretched arm, and his signs and his works, which he did in the midst of Egypt to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and to all his land, and what he did to the army of Egypt, to their horses, and to their chariots, when he made the water of the Red Sea to flow over them as they pursued after you, and how the Lord utterly destroyed them, and what he did to you in the wilderness until you came to this place, and what he did to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, the son of Reuben, when the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up. Their households, their tents, and everything that was in their possession in the midst of all Israel. But your eyes have seen the great deeds of the Lord which he did. And this is, precisely why I'm doing the page by page reading and commentary of the Bible. Because in earlier books, I just remember having the visualization as I was reading about when Dathan and Abiram basically, I guess, would have fallen into a canyon when the earth opened up by itself because of a certain situation. So I encourage everyone out there to, maybe you don't have the time to do it right now and whatnot, but read the Bible cover to cover. I mean, I'm doing it out loud with some of you, and obviously I've read way ahead on my own. But my goal this year is to get through the Bible cover to cover, just to have that in my head. I think it's important if you believe in Christianity in any capacity to have the entire text in your mind, whether you remember it or not. All right, let's keep going. All right, where did we pause? Okay. Therefore, you must keep all the commandments which I am commanding you today, so that you may be strong and go in and possess the land which you are going to possess, and that you may prolong your days in the land which the Lord swore to your fathers to give to them and to their descendants, a land flowing with milk and honey. For the land which you are entering to possess is not like the land in Egypt where you came, where you sowed your seed and watered it with your foot like a vegetable garden. But the land which you are entering to possess is a land of hills and valleys, and drinks water from the rain of heaven, a land which the Lord your God cares. The eyes of the Lord your God are always on it, from the beginning of the year even to the end of the year. It will be, if you will diligently obey my commandments, which I am commanding you today, to love the Lord your God and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. Then I will give you the rain of your land in its season, the early rain and the latter rain, that you may gather in your grain and your wine and your oil. I will provide grass in your fields for your livestock, that you may eat and be full. Take heed to yourselves, that your heart be not deceived, and you turn away and serve other gods and worship them. Then the Lord's wrath will be inflamed against you, and he will shut up the heavens so that there will be no rain, and the land will not yield its fruit, and you will quickly perish from the good land which the Lord is giving you. Therefore, you must fix these words of mine in your heart and in your soul, and bind them as a sign on your hand, so that they may be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall teach them to your children, speaking of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates, so that your days and the days of your children may be multiplied in the land which the Lord swore to your fathers to give to them, as long as the days of heaven on earth. For if you diligently keep all these commandments which I am commanding you to do, to love the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, and to hold fast to him, the Lord will drive out all these nations from before you, and you will dispossess nations greater and mightier than you. And you have to kind of look at that sentence as an analogy. Really think about this. The Lord will drive out all these nations from before you. Anyone who's a Christian can think of themselves as an individual, as the nation of Israel, really. And driving out nations that are supposed to oppose you is a simile or a metaphor. I'm not sure what term to use, but it has to do with any problems that you may be facing, no matter how big of the problem it might seem to be. If God sees fit, God can take away any issue or problem that you have. God can also give you problems that you couldn't even imagine. So, this is written so well. Every place where the soles of your feet tread will be yours. Your border will be from the wilderness to Lebanon, from the river Euphrates, as far as the Mediterranean Sea. No man will be able to resist you, for the Lord your God shall lay the fear of you and the dread of you on all the land where you shall tread, just as he has spoken to you. See, I am setting before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing, if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, which I am commanding of you today, and the curse, if you will not obey the commandments of the Lord your God, but turn from the way which I am commanding you today, to go after other gods, which you have not known. Now it shall be, when the Lord your God has brought you into the land which you are entering to possess, that you shall put the blessing on the Mount Gerizim, and the cursed on Mount Ebal. And I guess you could parallel to the land that they were set to possess as being what you as an individual are set to become. Whether you know what you're set to become or not. I think some people know, but some people don't. I've always kind of known where my life was headed, even though it's had some weird twists and turns. Right now, it's about where I figured it would be when I was a young girl, which is interesting. Are they not on the other side of the Jordan, west, where the sun goes down, in the land of the Canaanites, who dwell in the plain opposite Gilgal, beside the oaks of Moreh? For you will cross over the Jordan to go into possess the land where the Lord your God is giving you, and you will possess it and dwell in it. You must be careful to do all the statutes and judgments which I am setting before you today. Deuteronomy chapter 12, the one place of worship. These are the statutes and judgments which you shall be careful to observe in the land, which the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given to you to possess all the days that you live on the earth. You must utterly destroy all the places where the nations which you will possess served their gods on high mountains and on the hills, and under every green tree. You shall overthrow their altars and break their pillars, and burn their Asherah poles with fire. You shall cut down the engraved images of their gods, and eliminate their names out of that place. In other words, Christian God wants the energy of any competitors completely out of their existence. You shall not act this way toward the Lord your God, but you must seek only the place which the Lord your God shall choose out of your tribes to establish his name. And there you must go. There you shall bring your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes, the offerings of your hand, your vows, your free will offerings, and the firstborn of your herds of your flocks. There you must eat before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice in all that you put your hand to, you and your households, where the Lord your God has blessed you. You are not to do all the things that we are doing here today, where every man does whatever is right in his own eyes. For you have not yet come to the rest and to the inheritance which the Lord your God has given you. But when you cross the Jordan and dwell in the land which the Lord your God has given you to inherit, and when he gives you rest from all your enemies round about, so that you dwell in safety, then there will be a place which the Lord your God will choose to cause his name to dwell. There you must bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes, your offerings of your hand, and all your choice vows, which you vow to the Lord. You will rejoice before the Lord your God, you, your sons, your daughters, your male servants, your female servants, and the Levite who is within your gates, for he has no portion or inheritance with you. Be careful that you do not offer your burnt offerings in every place that you see. Rather, in the place which the Lord will choose in one of your tribes. There you must offer your burnt offerings, and there you must do all that I command you. God's particular here. Notwithstanding, you may kill and eat meat within your gates, whatever your heart desires, according to the blessing of the Lord, your God, which he has given you. The unclean and the clean may eat of it, of the gazelle and of the deer. Only you must not eat the blood. You shall pour it on the ground like water. You may not eat within your gates the tithe of your grain, your wine, your oil, the firstborn of your herds, or your flock, any of your vows which you vow, your free will offerings, or the offering of your hand. Rather, you must eat them before the Lord and your God in the place which the Lord your God will choose. You, your son, your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, and the Levite, which is within your gates. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God in that you undertake to do, in all that you undertake to do. Take heed to yourself that you do not forsake the Levite as long as you live on the earth. When the Lord your God shall enlarge your border, as he has promised you, and you say, I will eat I will eat meat because you desire to eat meat. Then you may eat as much meat as your heart desires. If the place where the Lord your God has chosen to put his name is too far from you, then you shall kill of your herd and your flock, which the Lord has given you, as I have commanded you, and you must eat in your gates whatever your heart desires. Even as the gazelle and the deer are eaten, so you shall eat them. The unclean and the clean shall eat of them alike. Only be sure that you do not eat the blood, for the blood is the life, and you may not eat the life with the meat. You must not eat it. You must pour it on the ground like water. You must not eat it, so it may go well with you and your children after you, when you do that which is right in the sight of the Lord. Hmm. You shall take only your holy things with you. You shall take only your holy things which you have, along with your vows, and go to the place with the Lord, which the Lord shall choose. You must offer your burnt offerings, the meat and the blood, on the altar of the Lord your God, and the blood of your sacrifices will be poured out on the altar of the Lord your God, and you shall eat the meat. Observe and hear all these words which I command you, so that it may go well with you and your children after you forever. When you do that which is good and right in the sight of the Lord your God. When the Lord your God shall cut off nations from before you, where you go to possess them, and you dispossess them, and dwell in their land, take heed to yourself, so that you are not ensnared by following them, after they have been destroyed before you, that you not inquire after their gods, saying, how did nations serve their gods? Even so I will do likewise. You shall not do so to the Lord your God, for every abomination to the Lord which he hates, they have done to your gods. They have even burned your sons and their daughters in the fire to their gods. That's a reference to Baal there again. The worship of Baal is such a problem because Baal wants that child energy. And we do see that today. Whenever you see someone who is willing to exploit children, especially their own children, their flesh and blood, most likely such a person is a worshiper of Baal. Avoid such people. Usually, worshipers of Baal, they won't really, you won't really see them go into a church or physically pick up a Bible, but they do tend to try to pass themselves off as Christians. Sometimes as people of the Jewish faith, too. It's actually easier for a person who worships Baal to claim to be of the Jewish faith than to be a Christian. Whatever I command you, be careful to do it. You shall not add to it or take away from it. All right, we're going into Deuteronomy 13 now. Idolatry. If a prophet or a dreamer of dreams arises among you and gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder comes to pass concerning that which he spoke to you, saying, let us go after other gods, which you have not known, and let us serve them. You must not listen to the words of that prophet or of that dreamer of dreams. For the Lord your God is testing you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. That's intense, and it's true, in my opinion. For some reason, by default, a lot of Christians are under the belief that the only way that a person can embody foresight or psychic gifts or someone who's a quote unquote seer, The only way that they can do that is to not believe in Christianity or Jesus Christ or God. Completely the opposite. But you do have people with those gifts who sometimes find faster or maybe even instant gratification to align their gifts with that of the darkness opposed to the light, meaning Satanism and things along those lines, demonic worship and demonic activity. um, I would say that if you're somebody who consults with anybody with such gifts, ask them, do you believe in God and Jesus Christ, before you utilize their advice or their services or anything along those lines. All right, I'll go ahead and continue. You must follow after the Lord your God, fear him, and keep his commandments. Obey his voice, and you must serve him and cling to him. That prophet or that dreamer of dreams must be put to death because he has spoken in order to turn you away from the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt and redeemed you out of the house of bondage, to entice you away from the way in which the Lord your God commanded you to walk, so that you must put the evil away from your midst. If your brother, the son of your mother, or your son, or your daughter, or your beloved wife, or your friend, who is as your own soul, entices you secretly, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which you have not known, neither you nor your fathers, namely, of the gods of the people who are all around you, near you, or far away from you, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth, you shall not consent to him or listen to him. Neither should your eye pity him, nor shall you spare or conceal him, but you must surely kill him. Your hand must be first upon him to put him to death, and afterwards the hand of all the people. You shall stone him with stones so that he dies, because he has sought to entice you away from the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. Wow, that's pretty harsh, isn't it? That's pretty harsh. Deuteronomy's like, look, you know what you need to do to these people who try to pull you away from God? Kill them. Now, of course, legally you cannot do that within the United States of America. But that's Deuteronomy 13. Yes, it is. That is Deuteronomy 13. Let's plug this in over here. Hmm. All Israel shall hear and fear, and no more do any such wickedness as this among you. Hmm. So that's how far they took it. Interesting. If you hear it said in one of your cities in which the Lord your God has given you to dwell, saying, certain men's, the sons of wickedness, are gone out from among you, and have seduced the inhabitants of their cities, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which you have not known, then you shall inquire, search out, and ask diligently. If it be true and certain that such an abomination has been among you, You shall surely put the inhabitants of that city to the sword, utterly destroying it, all that is in it, and all its livestock, with the edge of the sword. You must gather all the spoils of it into the middle of the street, and burn the city with the fire along all the spoils within it for the Lord your God, and it will be a heap forever. It must not be rebuilt. Nothing of the cursed thing there must cling to your hand, so that the Lord may turn from the fierceness of his anger and show you mercy, have compassion on you, and multiply you, just as he swore to your fathers. If you listen to the voice of the Lord your God, to keep all his commandments, which I command you today, and do that which is right in the eyes of the Lord your God. Deuteronomy 14. Clean and unclean food. You are the sons of the Lord your God. You shall not cut yourselves or make any baldness between your eyes for the dead. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God, and the Lord has chosen you to be a peculiar people to himself, treasured above all the nations that are on the earth. That's an interesting translation. I'm actually going to reread this in the King James Version just because I'm curious. Deuteronomy 14. Let's switch this. I just want to see how it's different. Ye are the children of the Lord your God. Ye shall not cut yourselves, nor make any baldness between your eyes for the dead. What does that mean? Make any baldness between the eyes for the dead. What do y'all think that means? Make any baldness between the eyes for the dead. I'm going to see what people have to say about that. Copy. I'm just going to Google that phrase. Oh. So making baldness between your eyes for the dead, it was a Canaanite mourning practice, meaning mourning their dead. What would that mean? Shaving your eyebrows? A lot of people have asked this. Okay, so there must be an answer. It's not, no, I'm over on Quora. What does this mean? It doesn't really say exactly, but it seems like it was a pagan custom, and they didn't want people doing that anymore. I wonder what the solid reason for that was. Hmm. Anyway, for thou art for thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God, and the Lord hath chosen thee to be peculiar people unto himself, above all the nations that are upon the earth. Thou shalt not eat anything, eat any abominable thing. These are the beasts which you shall eat: Actually, let's go back to the modern English version of this now. I switched to King James. I just want to see if it was different, and it doesn't seem like there is much of a difference. Okay, so here's what you're not supposed to eat, or that you can eat. You can eat ox, sheep, goat, deer, gazelle, fallow deer, wild goat, ibex, antelope, mountain sheep. You can eat every animal with divided hooves, with the hoof divided into two parts, and that chews the cud. Nevertheless, you may not eat of these that chew the cud, or of them that divide the hoof. Camels, rabbits. I've always heard that you're not supposed to eat rabbits, but people do eat rabbits. But I have never had rabbit. And the coney, for they chew the cud, but their hoof is not divided. Therefore they are unclean to you. The pig is unclean to you, because it divides the hoof, yet it does not chew the cud. You must not eat of their flesh or touch their dead carcass. Yeah, um, I'll say it. The taste of pork and bacon and stuff is delicious, but I'm going back to not eating swine or pigs. I'm going back to that just because I feel like I need to. I mean, I feel like I'm hardly letting myself eat much of anything nowadays anyway. So anything that I feel like I really shouldn't be eating, I'm just not eating. Not at all. You may eat of all clean birds. However, these are the ones which you shouldn't eat. So you shouldn't eat eagles, vultures, buzzards, red kites, falcons, ravens, ostriches, owls, seagulls, hawks, pelicans, storks, herons, and don't eat bats. Every creeping thing that flies is unclean to you. They must not be eaten. You may eat all the clean birds. You must not eat anything that dies of itself, but you must give it to the foreigner that is in your gates, so that he may eat it, or you may sell it to a foreigner. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Okay. Okay. Some of these bans on animals may have had to do with disease at that time also. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, I've cleaned up my diet substantially over the past few years. And, this year, pretty early on in the year, I decided to give up cigarettes again. That was important to me. So I did that. Um, I'm feeling really good actually, overall. I mean, there's some days that I'm a little low energy, but I just kind of wanted to get to the point to where I felt energetic enough to where I don't drink coffee anymore. I just don't want to be, coffee girl. I'll have coffee sometimes, or, if I meet a friend at Starbucks or something, we'll get a coffee. But I've just really been shifting a few things, in part for spiritual reasons, not just for health reasons, but I've always kept my body pretty clean internally, but I want to take it up a few notches just because I know I will not be as active as I am right now forever. And I want to have as much length of time left as I possibly can have. At the end of 3 years, you must bring forth all the tithe. Oh, did I start this right? Yeah. Wait, did I skip some? Yeah, I did. Okay, let's start here. Tithes. You must be certain to tithe all the produce of your seed, so that the field produces year by year. You must eat before the Lord your God in the place in which he shall choose to place his name. The tithe of your grain, of your wine, of your oil, and of the firstborn of your herds, of the flocks, so that you may learn to always fear the Lord to your God. Uh, I think I'm getting tired now. Let's reread that. Yeah, of your oil, okay. To learn to always fear the Lord your God. If the distance is too long for you, so that you are not able to carry it, because the place is too far from you, where the Lord your God shall choose to set his name, when the Lord your God blesses you, then you shall exchange it for money and bind up the money in your hand and go to the place where the Lord your God shall choose. So, in other words, the tithing, um, you're supposed to give a portion of everything you do to God in some way, okay? And God's saying, look, if whatever it is that you do, whatever the goods are that you produce are too heavy, and the temple or the church or whatever it is where people are, congregating together to worship is too far from you, then exchange it for money. And there you go. That's part of the birth of money, so that you have a smaller way to get the energy of your labor over to God's hands. That's what it is. All right, let's keep going. After this, I'm going to stop. I wanted to do Deuteronomy 1 through 7, but we made it up into Deuteronomy 14. So that's double what I thought I was going to do, which is great. Okay. Then you may spend that money for whatever your heart desires, for oxen or for sheep or for wine or for strong drink or for whatever your heart desires. And you may eat there before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice, you and your household. And the Levite that is within your gates, you must not forsake him, for he has no portion or inheritance with you. At the end of the 3 years, you must bring forth all the tithe of your produce the same year and lay it up within your gates. Then the Levite, because he has no portion or inheritance with you, the foreigner, the fatherless, and the widow who are within your gates shall come and shall eat and be satisfied. So the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hand which you do. All right, well, I think that ends this video on a good note. So going forward, at least for a little while, I think I'm going to do the video Bible readings. I feel a little bit more connected to some of you doing the video Bible readings, believe it or not. So I want to do that. When I'll do this again, not tomorrow, most likely, not tomorrow. Tomorrow, I hope to be able to do a commentary that I've been trying to do since I've been where I am right now, but I haven't been able to do because of the internet not being fast enough. But that's okay. That's all right. Because tomorrow I will be where the internet is fast enough. So we can kind of return to our scheduled programming. But I do need to be on video more when I do these Bible readings. I just feel that way. So y'all have a good one. Yeah, it has been great, Onyx, hasn't it? This was fun. See you later, Lava. See you later. I will see you all another time in another place. And time for me to log into work. Bye-bye.